What if everything you've been taught about reality is only half the story? What if the circumstances you struggle against every day are not fixed walls, but reflections of something much deeper within you? Most people spend their lives trying to change the world around them without ever realizing that the greatest power they possess lies in changing the world inside them. In the next few minutes, you may discover a truth so profound that once you see it, you can never look at your life the same way again. Stay with me until the end, because the hidden principle you're about to hear has the potential to transform the way you think, feel, and experience every single day. Every visible change in life begins with an invisible shift that takes place deep within the mind. Most people believe that the external world determines their thoughts, emotions, and possibilities, but the hidden truth is that the inner world quietly shapes how reality is experienced. Before any dream becomes tangible, before any opportunity presents itself, and before any transformation can be seen by others, it first exists as an accepted idea within consciousness. The quality of your inner conversations, the images you repeatedly entertain, and the beliefs you hold about yourself become the blueprint from which your daily life unfolds. This is why two individuals standing in the same environment can create completely different futures. One sees limitation where another sees opportunity, not because the world is different, but because the state of mind through which they observe it is different. The greatest mistake people make is waiting for external evidence before they allow themselves to think differently. They postpone confidence until success arrives, postpone gratitude until abundance appears, and postpone peace until every problem disappears. Yet this approach keeps them trapped in an endless cycle where nothing truly changes. The person who learns to cultivate the feeling of confidence before the achievement, gratitude before the reward, and certainty before the proof begins operating from an entirely different level of awareness. Their decisions become bolder, their actions become more consistent, and their perception starts noticing possibilities that previously seemed invisible. What appears to others as sudden luck is often the natural result of an inner transformation that had been developing long before anyone could see it. Imagine planting a seed beneath the soil. For days or even weeks, there is no visible sign of growth. Someone observing from the outside may conclude that nothing is happening, yet beneath the surface an entire process is unfolding. Roots are spreading, strength is developing, and life is preparing to emerge at the perfect moment. The same principle applies to every meaningful change in human experience. The unseen always comes before the seen. When you consistently occupy a new mental state, even if circumstances have not yet caught up, you are nurturing the roots of a future that is gradually taking shape. Many people underestimate the importance of their internal dialogue because no one else can hear it. But those silent conversations become the soundtrack of their lives. If a person repeatedly tells themselves they are unworthy, incapable, or destined to fail, those assumptions begin influencing every decision they make. They hesitate where they should act, doubt where they should trust, and surrender where they should persist. On the other hand, when someone begins affirming possibility, value, and purpose within themselves, they naturally move through life with greater clarity and resilience. Their external world begins reflecting this shift because their actions, reactions, and expectations have fundamentally changed. Your imagination serves as the workshop where future experiences are quietly assembled. Every accomplishment humanity has ever celebrated existed first as an invisible concept before becoming physical reality. Buildings were once sketches, inventions were once ideas, and masterpieces were once silent visions inside someone's mind. The ability to mentally experience a desired future, before physically arriving there is one of the most remarkable capacities of human consciousness. When you repeatedly visit that future with conviction and emotional involvement, you strengthen your willingness to act in alignment with it. You begin making choices that support rather than sabotage your own aspirations. This principle does not require denying present circumstances or pretending challenges do not exist. Difficult situations are real and deserve thoughtful responses. However, they do not have to become permanent identities. The conditions surrounding you today may simply represent yesterday's assumptions expressed in visible form. If assumptions can be repeated into existence over time, they can also be replaced by new ones. The power lies in refusing to let temporary appearances dictate permanent conclusions about your future. As you move through each day, pay close attention to the story you continuously tell yourself. Notice whether your thoughts reinforce limitation or possibility, fear or confidence, doubt or expectation. Every repeated assumption strengthens a particular direction for your life. By consciously choosing thoughts that align with the person you aspire to become, you begin constructing a new internal foundation. Gradually, your behavior changes, your relationships evolve, and opportunities that once seemed distant begin appearing naturally. The hidden truth most people never discover is that reality often responds to the identity they consistently inhabit. When you transform that identity from within, you stop reacting to life as a passive observer and begin participating in its creation with intention. The visible world may seem solid and unchangeable, but behind every lasting transformation stands an invisible decision that someone first accepted in their own consciousness. Change that inner acceptance, and over time, the outer experience begins to follow, proving that every meaningful creation starts within long before it is ever seen without. Among all the abilities we possess, imagination is perhaps the most underestimated. Many people treat it as nothing more than fantasy, a pleasant escape from reality, or a source of entertainment for children. Yet the truth is that imagination is the birthplace of every meaningful creation. Before a building rises into the skyline, it exists in the mind of an architect. Before a musician writes a masterpiece, the melody first plays silently within. Before an athlete wins a championship, the victory is often rehearsed countless times in the theater of the mind. Every achievement that changes the world begins as an invisible picture before it becomes a visible fact. The problem is that most people use this extraordinary gift without realizing its influence. Instead of imagining the life they want, they repeatedly imagine the problems they fear. They replay failures before they happen, anticipate rejection before speaking, and expect disappointment before giving themselves a chance to succeed. Their imagination becomes a workshop for anxiety instead of possibility. Because the mind responds strongly to repeated mental experiences, these imagined fears begin shaping emotions, decisions, and actions. Eventually, they create patterns that seem to confirm the very doubts that started the cycle. Imagine walking into a workshop where every tool is available to build something remarkable. You could design beauty, innovation, and opportunity, yet instead you spend every day constructing walls that limit your own movement. That is exactly what happens when imagination is left on autopilot. The mind does not always distinguish between vividly imagined experiences and deeply remembered ones. It absorbs repeated emotional impressions and uses them to shape expectations. If your inner world is constantly rehearsing defeat, your outer behavior may unconsciously align with that script. But if your imagination begins rehearsing confidence, abundance, peace, and achievement, your actions often start reflecting those expectations in subtle yet powerful ways. The remarkable thing about imagination is that it allows you to experience a future before it physically exists. You can mentally occupy the version of yourself who has already overcome the obstacles standing in your way. You can picture yourself speaking with confidence, creating meaningful relationships, building success, or living with greater purpose. These images are not guarantees of a specific outcome, but they can strengthen your motivation, influence your choices, and help you recognize opportunities that align with your goals. By repeatedly visiting that desired future in your mind, you begin making it feel familiar instead of impossible. Many people believe that action alone creates results, but action is often guided by belief, and belief is frequently nurtured through imagination. Someone who genuinely sees themselves as capable tends to approach challenges differently than someone who constantly pictures failure. They take risks where others hesitate. They persist where others quit. They interpret setbacks as temporary instead of permanent. Their imagination has quietly reshaped their identity, and that identity influences every decision they make. What appears from the outside to be extraordinary confidence is often the product of an inner vision practiced consistently over time. This is why it is important to guard the images you allow to dominate your thinking. Every day your mind is painting pictures, whether consciously or unconsciously. News, conversations, memories, and fears all compete for space in your imagination. If left unmanaged, they may create stories that limit your potential. But when you intentionally choose images that inspire growth, resilience, and hope, you begin directing your creative energy toward a more empowering future. You become the artist rather than the audience of your own mental world. The invisible workshop of creation is always active, even during moments when nothing appears to be changing externally. Just as a sculptor patiently shapes stone one careful strike at a time, your repeated thoughts and imagined experiences gradually shape your character and perspective. Day after day, they carve away doubt and strengthen conviction, preparing you for opportunities that may not yet be visible. The process is often quiet, but its effects become undeniable over time. There is also great freedom in realizing that imagination is not limited by present circumstances. You may not control every event that happens around you, but you can choose the vision you hold within. You can refuse to let temporary conditions define permanent possibilities. You can begin seeing yourself as resourceful instead of powerless, hopeful instead of defeated, determined instead of uncertain. That internal picture becomes a compass, guiding your attention and influencing the path you take. When you understand that imagination is the invisible workshop of creation, you stop dismissing your inner world as unimportant. You recognize that every great transformation begins with a picture accepted in the mind before it is expressed in life. The future is shaped not only by what your hands do, but also by what your heart believes and what your imagination repeatedly embraces. Guard those inner images carefully, because they are quietly laying the foundation for the reality you will eventually step into. There is a powerful force shaping your life every single day that most people rarely stop to examine. It is not your job title, your bank account, your past mistakes, or even the opinions of others. It is the emotional state you consistently carry within yourself. Your dominant feeling becomes the lens through which you interpret every event, every conversation, and every opportunity. Two people can wake up to the same sunrise, face the same circumstances, and yet experience completely different realities because the feelings they bring into the day are entirely different. One moves through life expecting growth and possibility, while the other expects disappointment and limitation. The world they encounter may look similar on the surface, but their inner experience creates two very different journeys. Most people believe that feelings are simply reactions to external events. They assume they must wait for something good to happen before they can feel grateful, confident, or fulfilled. They tell themselves that happiness will come after success, peace will arrive after problems disappear, and abundance will be felt only after wealth is achieved. But this way of thinking places emotional power entirely in the hands of circumstances. It turns life into a constant chase, where satisfaction is always postponed until some future moment that never seems to arrive. The deeper truth is that the feelings you cultivate today influence how you act, what you notice, and the opportunities you are willing to pursue. Think about the difference between someone who begins the day feeling hopeful and someone who begins it feeling defeated. The hopeful person is more likely to greet challenges with curiosity, speak with confidence, and remain open to unexpected possibilities. The defeated person may avoid risks, interpret neutral situations negatively, and withdraw from opportunities that could have changed everything. The same external world exists for both individuals, but their dominant emotional state quietly guides their behavior. Over time, those behaviors accumulate into habits, and those habits shape the direction of their lives. Feelings are not merely fleeting emotions that come and go without consequence. They become part of your identity when repeated consistently. If you spend years identifying with fear, insecurity, or lack, those emotions begin influencing every decision you make. You may reject opportunities because you assume failure is inevitable. You may sabotage relationships because you expect disappointment. You may overlook possibilities because your attention is fixed on what could go wrong. In contrast, when you repeatedly identify with confidence, gratitude, patience, and purpose, you naturally begin making choices that reflect those qualities. The transformation may appear subtle at first, but over time it becomes profound. This is why cultivating a chosen emotional state can be such a powerful practice. It does not mean pretending that pain, uncertainty, or hardship do not exist. Difficult emotions are a natural part of being human, and acknowledging them honestly is important. Rather, it means refusing to let temporary emotions become permanent definitions of who you are. You can recognize fear without allowing it to direct your future. You can experience disappointment without surrendering your hope. You can face challenges while still choosing to nurture resilience and expectation within yourself. One of the most remarkable aspects of the human mind is its ability to influence emotional experience through attention and imagination. When you repeatedly focus on gratitude, you begin noticing more reasons to be grateful. When you intentionally recall moments of courage, your confidence grows stronger. When you spend time envisioning meaningful possibilities instead of constant limitations, your emotional landscape begins to shift. This shift affects your posture, your conversations, your decisions, and even the way other people respond to your presence. What starts as an internal adjustment gradually becomes visible in the quality of your daily experiences. Many of history's greatest achievements were accomplished by individuals who refused to let present circumstances determine their emotional state. They chose faith over doubt, determination over fear, and vision over discouragement long before the world recognized their success. Their ability to maintain a constructive inner atmosphere allowed them to continue moving forward when external evidence offered little encouragement. They understood that if they surrendered internally, they would likely surrender externally as well. Your dominant feeling is like the climate of your inner world. Just as a garden flourishes under the right conditions, your thoughts, actions, and aspirations thrive when supported by emotions that encourage growth rather than restriction. A climate of gratitude nourishes creativity. A climate of confidence strengthens persistence. A climate of purpose fuels consistent action. On the other hand, A climate dominated by hopelessness can slowly drain motivation before opportunities even have a chance to develop. The hidden truth is that every day you are choosing, consciously or unconsciously, the emotional atmosphere in which your life unfolds. You may not control every circumstance that appears before you, but you can influence the state from which you respond. And when that chosen state becomes consistent, it begins shaping the decisions you make, the people you attract, and the direction you travel. Over time, your dominant feeling becomes more than an emotion. It becomes the quiet force that determines how you experience reality itself. By mastering your inner state, you create the foundation for a life guided not by fear of what is, but by confidence in what can become. One of the greatest obstacles standing between people and the life they desire is the belief that they must first see evidence before they can truly believe. They wait for the promotion before feeling successful, for the relationship before feeling worthy of love, for the money before feeling abundant, and for the opportunity before believing they are capable. Their confidence is always tied to conditions outside themselves, making their sense of purpose fragile and dependent on circumstances they cannot fully control. But the hidden truth is that transformation begins the moment you stop waiting for external proof and start embodying the qualities you seek from within. Imagine someone standing in front of a mirror, refusing to smile until the reflection smiles first. They could wait forever because the reflection only responds after they make the first move. Life often works in a similar way. The attitudes, expectations, and identities you consistently carry shape the way you approach the world. When you decide to think, speak, and act from the version of yourself you aspire to become, you begin sending a different message through your choices. The world may not change overnight, but you have already initiated the process by changing the source from which your actions flow. Most people underestimate the power of identity. They focus on changing isolated behaviors while continuing to believe they are fundamentally the same person. They attempt to build confidence while secretly identifying as insecure, pursue success while believing they are destined to fail, or seek meaningful relationships while feeling unworthy of connection. These conflicting beliefs create hesitation and inconsistency. True change becomes easier when you begin by redefining who you believe yourself to be. Actions naturally follow identity. When you see yourself as disciplined, you are more likely to practice discipline. When you see yourself as capable, you approach challenges differently. The internal shift quietly influences the external outcome. This does not mean pretending to possess skills or achievements you do not have. It means choosing an empowering self concept that supports growth rather than limitation. A person training to become a musician does not need to wait until performing on a grand stage before embracing the identity of someone committed to music. They practice because they already see themselves becoming that person. Likewise, someone building a business does not wait until success arrives before adopting the habits of responsibility, resilience, and creativity. They embody those qualities first, and those qualities guide the work that follows. The danger of constantly seeking proof is that proof often arrives only after consistent action has already been taken. Confidence grows through experience, but experience usually begins with a willingness to act despite uncertainty. If every meaningful step required guaranteed results beforehand, few great accomplishments would ever happen. The inventor who experiments repeatedly without immediate success, the writer who continues creating despite rejection, and the entrepreneur who persists through setbacks all demonstrate a common principle. They act from conviction before circumstances fully validate that conviction. There is also a subtle psychological shift that occurs when you stop chasing evidence and begin expressing belief through daily behavior. Your attention moves away from what is missing and toward what can be built. Instead of measuring yourself against present limitations, you begin measuring yourself by your commitment to growth. You celebrate consistency rather than perfection, progress rather than comparison. This mindset creates resilience because your motivation no longer depends entirely on immediate results. Every small action becomes evidence that you are already becoming the person you envision. Many people unknowingly postpone their own evolution by telling themselves stories such as, "I'll believe in myself when others recognize my talent," or "I'll feel confident once everything works out." Yet, history is filled with individuals who achieved extraordinary things precisely because they believed in their vision long before the world acknowledged it. Their certainty was not rooted in external applause, but in an internal decision to continue moving forward regardless of temporary appearances. They became living examples of the future they wished to create before anyone else could see it. To become the proof is to allow your daily choices to reflect your deepest aspirations. It means speaking with integrity even when no one is watching, showing kindness before receiving it, working diligently before recognition arrives, and maintaining hope even when outcomes remain uncertain. These actions strengthen character and create momentum. Over time, they influence the opportunities you pursue, the relationships you build, and the reputation you establish. The visible results emerge because the invisible foundation has already been laid. There is remarkable freedom in realizing that you do not need permission from the outside world to begin changing your life. You do not have to wait for perfect timing, universal approval, or guaranteed success before choosing a new direction. Every moment offers an opportunity to think differently, act differently, and identify differently. The future version of yourself is shaped not by a single dramatic event, but by countless ordinary decisions made with extraordinary intention. When you stop waiting for proof and become the proof, you reclaim the power that was always available to you. You stop allowing circumstances to define your identity and instead let your identity influence the way you meet circumstances. You walk with greater purpose, speak with greater conviction, and act with greater consistency because your confidence is no longer borrowed from temporary outcomes. It is rooted in the quiet certainty that who you choose to be today is already shaping the reality you will experience tomorrow. In that moment, you discover that the strongest evidence of change is not what the world has yet shown you. It is the person you have already decided to become. There is a quiet principle operating beneath the surface of everyday life that many people never stop to consider. The assumptions you consistently hold about yourself and the world influence the way you perceive, interpret, and respond to your experiences. Long before circumstances seem to change, your inner beliefs shape your expectations, your decisions, and the opportunities you notice. If you assume that life is always working against you, you may unconsciously focus on setbacks while overlooking possibilities. If you assume that growth is possible and that challenges can be overcome, you are more likely to act with persistence and recognize openings that others might miss. In this way, the world often appears to mirror the lens through which you choose to view it. Every person carries an invisible collection of assumptions. Some were formed in childhood through repeated experiences, while others developed through personal victories or disappointments over time. These assumptions become so familiar that they feel like objective truth rather than interpretations. Someone who believes they are not capable may hesitate before every opportunity, interpreting uncertainty as proof of inadequacy. Another person with the same abilities but a different assumption may approach the situation with confidence, learn from mistakes, and eventually succeed through persistence. The difference is not always talent or luck. It is often the quiet belief operating beneath conscious awareness. Consider how your expectations affect simple daily interactions. If you enter a conversation expecting rejection, your body language may become guarded, your words may lose confidence, and your attention may focus only on signs that confirm your fear. The other person responds to that energy, and the interaction unfolds accordingly. On the other hand, if you approach with openness, calmness, and genuine interest, the conversation often develops differently. Your assumption influences your behavior, and your behavior influences the experience you create. Over time, repeated patterns reinforce the original belief, making it appear as though the world itself is proving you right. This principle extends beyond relationships into every area of life. The entrepreneur who assumes obstacles are temporary tends to search for solutions rather than surrender. The student who assumes improvement is possible continues studying after failure instead of giving up. The artist who assumes their work has value keeps creating despite criticism until their skill grows. In each case, the inner assumption does not magically guarantee success, but it shapes the persistence, resilience, and openness that make success more likely. The belief becomes a guiding force behind consistent action. Many people unknowingly imprison themselves with assumptions they never consciously chose. They repeat phrases such as, "Nothing ever works out for me," "I'm always unlucky," or "People like me never succeed." These statements become internal scripts that influence countless decisions. The mind begins searching for evidence that supports them while ignoring evidence that contradicts them. This psychological tendency can create a cycle where limiting beliefs seem repeatedly confirmed, not because they are universally true, but because attention and behavior have aligned with them. Breaking that cycle begins with recognizing that assumptions are not fixed laws. They are patterns that can be questioned and replaced. Changing an assumption does not require denying reality or pretending difficulties do not exist. It requires choosing a more constructive interpretation that encourages growth instead of resignation. Rather than assuming every setback defines your future, you can view it as information for improvement. Rather than believing one failure determines your worth, you can recognize that skills develop through practice and persistence. This shift in perspective changes how you respond, and those responses gradually influence the results you experience. The remarkable thing about inner assumptions is that they often operate quietly in the background. You may not notice them until you examine the recurring themes in your life. Do you expect opportunities or obstacles? Do you believe people can be trusted or that disappointment is inevitable? Do you see yourself as someone capable of learning or someone permanently limited by the past? These assumptions shape emotional reactions, influence daily habits, and determine whether you approach life with hope or hesitation. They become the invisible architecture supporting every visible decision. When you intentionally cultivate empowering assumptions, you begin altering the foundation upon which your experiences are built. You start expecting growth instead of stagnation, possibility instead of impossibility, and progress instead of defeat. These expectations encourage different choices. You speak up where you once remained silent. You apply for opportunities you previously believed were beyond your reach. You continue after setbacks instead of interpreting them as final verdicts. Little by little, your outer world begins reflecting the confidence and persistence that originated within. There is also a deeper freedom in realizing that your identity is not chained to old assumptions. Past experiences may explain why certain beliefs developed, but they do not have to dictate your future. You have the ability to examine inherited stories and consciously replace those that no longer serve you. Every new assumption repeated with sincerity becomes another seed planted in the garden of your mind. Given time, attention, and consistent action, those seeds grow into habits, relationships, and achievements that once seemed impossible. Ultimately, the world mirrors your inner assumptions, not because reality bends to every passing thought, but because your beliefs influence the way you engage with reality itself. They determine what you notice, how you respond, and whether you persist when challenges arise. The person who changes those assumptions changes the direction of countless daily decisions, and those decisions accumulate into a transformed life. The hidden truth is that when you reshape the story you carry within, you begin reshaping the story you live without. The reflection in the mirror changes because the person standing before it has already chosen to become someone new. The hidden truth about reality is not locked away in some distant place, waiting for only a chosen few to find it. It has always been quietly waiting within your own awareness. The moment you change your assumptions, elevate your vision, and begin living from the person you wish to become, the world starts responding in unexpected ways. The greatest miracle is not changing your circumstances overnight. It is discovering that you have the ability to transform yourself and in doing so influence the direction of your life. So leave today with one simple decision. Stop letting the outside define who you are and start allowing your inner conviction to shape the reality you experience. The future you seek may already be waiting for the version of you that finally believes it is possible. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this message resonated with you, carry it into your daily life and let it become more than inspiration. Let it become practice. Remember, every thought you nurture, every feeling you embrace, and every belief you repeat is helping shape the story you live. If you enjoyed this message, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who may need this reminder today. Until next time, keep believing in the unseen possibilities within you and never underestimate the power of your own consciousness. Take care, and I'll see you in the next